This story was narrated by Vid Crew Media. Please show your support by like and subscribe. Thank you. I mean, of all people, I had to be mated to the king. The same king that had been looking for a mate for 10 years. Why? I didn't want a mate. I don't need a mate. I am happy by myself. But for some reason a little voice inside my head told me that I would never have been completely happy. Holding my breath, I prayed that he wouldn't find me. I wasn't really religious, but I found myself praying. All I wanted was for him not to find me, and then I can leave this ball. There was no way in hell that I was going to risk going back in there. I would go back to the hotel and tell my parents I was feeling so sick and had to leave. Yes, that was a solid plan. My thought process was broken when I was suddenly lifted from my position behind the bushes. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I found myself standing face to face with the king, his hazel eyes piercing into my own. My heart started racing as he bent down and whispered in my ear, "Because now that I've found you, I have no plans on letting you go. Ever." Well, fuck, there was no denying this. Mate bond was strong, stronger than I thought. The moment was broken as the king brushed a piece of hair out of my face. "Never in my life have I seen a girl as beautiful as you," the king whispered in my ear. Sparks shot down my body, and I gasped. Why were his words having such a big effect on me? This wasn't normal, but then again nothing about this situation was anyway. The king was holding my hands behind my back, as if he were afraid that I would run. Could you release my hands, please?" I managed to say. The king raised his eyebrows and replied, "How can I be sure that you won't run? As much as I love the chase, I don't really want to catch you again." I shivered at the desire in his eyes. As much as I tried to convince myself that the king wasn't drop-dead gorgeous, my body was saying otherwise. I found myself wanting to be caught by the king again. My mind was messed up. That was the only conclusion I could come to. "May I know the name of the beautiful lady who will be my queen?" the king asked. "Do these compliments of yours work on all the ladies?" I replied, my sass getting the better of me. "I wouldn't know. You're the first lady I have tried it on," the king responded, smirking at me. I forced myself to look away from his eyes. They were dangerous. The king, with his free hand, moved my face, so I was again looking at his hazel eyes. He looked at me as if to say, "Tell me your name," and I sighed. Arya Beatty." I relented and told him my name. "Arya," the king said slowly. Geez, did he have to say my name like that? My body responded immediately to that, and I felt sparks shoot down my spine. He sounded so when he said my name. "No, Arya, you are not meant to be thinking like that. Snap out of it." I scolded myself. "Beautiful name. You already know my name, don't you, love?" he asked. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. The pet name caught me by surprise. This was all happening fast. I didn't know what to do, but something told me there was nothing I could do anyway. After all, I didn't have a normal werewolf for a mate or even a normal lichen. I had the Lichen King. He was the strongest of them all. Whatever I would do, he would catch me. My logical brain told me the dreaded truth. There was no escaping the Lichen King. Now, I was here for good. The sound of footsteps caused me to spin my head around, and the king let go of my hands. My family and friends all came out. I was relieved to see the familiar faces of my loved ones. Luke and Sophia both looked so relieved, and I knew why. I took a few steps toward them but jumped back in shock as they all bowed to me. What? I didn't want my loved ones to bow down to me. I wasn't royalty. Carter winked at me, causing me to roll my eyes. Obviously he finds this funny. I didn't have time to dwell on anything though. The king grabbed my hand, causing sparks to fly, and I gasped at the sudden contact. He didn't even stop for me to say anything to my family. Instead, he took me straight past them and inside. I looked behind to see they were all trailing behind. The king took me straight to the thrones. My heart started racing. What was he doing? I wasn't going to be crowned, was I? I hardly knew the king. My slow brain realized that Savannah was no longer at the top, and when we reached it, I saw her in the crowd below. She didn't look happy at all. My loyal subjects, today is a monumental occasion. Today I found my mate, your queen, and I couldn't be happier, the king announced, pulling me to his side. The announcement was followed by loud applause. My gaze found my parents, who were shedding happy tears. Carter was whooping, and Dia was telling him off. That caused me to smile. I glanced at all the Lycans, who all were tense before. They were all much happier and seemed like there was a weight lifted off their shoulders. This all felt so wrong but also so right. Why was I so conflicted? I looked around, but I couldn't see Nia anywhere. Where was she? Worry took over as I kept glancing through the crowds. She really wasn't there. What's wrong? The king whispered in my ear. I looked up at him, and he must have seen the worry on my face. He looked back at the crowd and smiled before taking me away. I realized that I didn't actually know what to call him. He smiled at me and replied, "Only you can call me Adonis. Only you have that right." I gulped as the air again became suffocating. I found myself wanting to run my hands through his hair and taste those luscious lips of his. "Come, let me introduce you to some very important people in my life," Adonis said, taking my hand. We headed downstairs and everyone was chatting among themselves. Well, what do we have here?" My thoughts. An unfamiliar voice interrupted. I didn't even realize that Adonis had brought us to a group of people. Two men looked at us both with massive smiles on their faces. One of them stepped forward and smiled. He had dark brown hair, it looked black. His dark brown eyes shone with happiness. "I am Evan Clark. I can't tell you how happy I am that this idiot has finally met you." Evan shook my hand. I politely smiled, and Adonis shook his head. "These are my best friends." Evan already introduced himself. "And that one over there is Gabe Davis. Nice to meet you." Gabe shook my hand. His blonde hair was long for a boy. It really suited him. A female came in front too. She had shoulder-length red hair, and her blue eyes stood out. She was gorgeous. "I am Lexi Robinson, Gabe's mate. I have to say you look so gorgeous." Lexi smiled. "Thank you. I love your outfit," I replied. "Do you know that us three have been friends for such a long time? Sometimes I wonder how I have dealt with these two." Evan sighed dramatically. Adonis rolled his eyes, and Gabe glared at Evan. "It's the other way around, idiot. I don't know how Gabe and I have put up with you. The amount of times we've gotten into trouble because of you." Adonis shook his head. I glanced at Adonis, who had a massive smile on his face. Even though we had just met, for some reason seeing him smile like that made me so happy. This mate bond was doing crazy things to my feelings, I swear. Even I struggle to believe that these two have put up with you for so long. I mean, Gabe and I have only been mates for 7 years, but that is enough to know what a handful you are." Lexi shook her head. Evan gasped dramatically. "What is this? Gang up on Evan time. You're embarrassing me in front of the queen." The mention of queen made me stiffen. I didn't want to be queen. That was too much responsibility. And how could I commit to one person after the heartbreak I experienced? "Enough. You are the one who is embarrassing yourself. Go and make sure everyone is happy." "I am going to meet my mate's family," Adonis said. His serious face was back on. Evan and Gabe nodded and left to fulfill the king's orders. Adonis gently took my hand. Those damn sparks made me gasp. Was this what it was always going to be like? I don't know how he knew, but Adonis made his way over to my parents. As soon as Mom saw me, she engulfed me in a massive hug. A mother's hug makes everything better. "Why are you crying?" I asked, wiping the tears from my mom's face. "Because I am so happy. My baby girl has found her mate, someone who will take such good care of her. What else could a mother want?" My mom sniffled. She turned to Adonis and smiled. "All I want is for you to take care of my daughter. Treat her like a queen." Adonis nodded and replied, "Don't worry. Your daughter will always remain happy." "Wow, my princess. is no longer a princess but a queen. I can't believe it." My dad winked. "Dad," I rolled my eyes. He laughed and hugged me before saying, "Arya, I want you to know that your mother and I are so proud of the woman you have become. You are now entering the next stage of your life. Enjoy it." Dad's words made me want to cry as I realized it was his goodbye. I didn't want to leave my parents and stay here. I wanted to go back home to my comfy room. "I'll miss you, my baby sister." Sai was the next one to hug me. "Will you? Or will you just miss teasing me?" I raised my eyebrows. Sai laughed. "You caught me. I'm going to miss teasing you and getting you all worked up." Zoya pulled me in for a hug. "I told you she looked like a queen. Arya, you are an amazing woman, never forget that." "This isn't fair. I've only just come back and now you're leaving me." Smiley. Carter's voice came from behind. "You now have a mate to take care of you." I smiled. Carter sighed and pulled me in for a hug. I tried my hardest not to cry. This wasn't how I planned my night to go. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would find my mate at the ball and have to say goodbye to all my loved ones. "You know I'll take care of him." Dia smiled. "Care? I know. He better take good care of you too." I glared at Carter. He held his hands up in mock surrender. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Really?" I shook my head. "I didn't say anything wrong. You are going to be a queen, and an amazing one at that." Carter kissed my forehead. It all felt so strange. Everyone from my pack was gathering around me and congratulating me. Suddenly, my eyes landed on Hunter's. He wasn't smiling at all, and his mate was talking to someone else. All night, it seemed like he'd been pretending that I didn't even exist, but the way he was staring at me now made my heart beat quicken and my breath catch in my throat. Now that everyone knew I had a mate, the freaking king. No less, he had an unmistakable glint in his eye, a look of pure jealousy. Oh, goddess. That's when I knew I was in a whole lot of trouble. "Arya." I quickly ripped my gaze away from Hunter's. I didn't like the way he was looking at me one bit. I had a mate now, and so did he. So why is he looking at me like that? And what would Adonis do if he saw it? I tried to pretend like I didn't notice him and turned to where Adonis had been standing a minute earlier. But he wasn't there. Where is he? I scanned the crowd, but Adonis was nowhere to be seen. I could still feel Hunter's gaze lingering on me as I started to look for Adonis. As I passed people, all of them were saying congratulations and I am so glad our king found his mate. The fake smile I put on was hurting my jaw. Even though there was nothing wrong with these people, all I wanted to do was find Adonis. I finally got to the end of the giant room and found a glass door leading out of the palace. It was completely dark outside, but when I peered out I saw the unmistakable hulking outline of Adonis standing on the balcony. What is he doing out there? I pushed the door open, about to call out to him, when suddenly I heard a female voice in the darkness. "How could you do this to me?" she said. I turned to see Savannah standing by him, with tears rolling down her face. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." Dimitri, Savannah said, wiping her tears away. "Wow, I must be a robot or something." Not even a small part of me felt sorry for this woman. I mean, she was embarrassed, but I didn't feel anything. Maybe a bit of anger, but that was it. I forgot that Adonis was very particular about who called him what. It was clear Savannah wasn't allowed to call him Adonis. For some weird reason, I felt proud. I must be going crazy. That was the only logical explanation. Rolling my eyes, I quickly turned to go. Dottie could deal with this on his own. But I didn't get the chance to leave. In a flash, Adonis had turned and held me captive in his arms. The feeling of him holding me was unlike anything I had felt before. "Arya, don't you even think about going anywhere," Adonis whispered in my ear. He looked to Savannah. "Please just leave." "Adonis, I have better things to do than listen to your lover's spat," I retorted as I tried to escape his hold, even though I didn't want to. "Adonis, why are you calling him that?" Savannah looked appalled. "She can." "Savannah, If you don't leave, then I will get guards to escort you out." Adonis now had his serious tone back on. Savannah looked at the both of us back and forth before finally leaving. "Can you now let me go?" I asked. "I never thought I would find you. I almost gave up," Adonis said softly. I looked at the sincerity in his eyes and nearly melted. This would have been the perfect time to say something romantic. But this is me we are talking about. So instead, I blurted out, "Well, I never wanted a mate after getting my heart broken." Adonis's demeanor changed as he held me tighter. His stance became different. He was definitely angry. "Who the hell had your heart before me?" he growled. "Well then, this wasn't going to be easy to get out of. You can't be telling me that no one has ever broken your heart before," I asked, shocked. "This isn't about me, this is about you. You're the one who said it." Adonis tightened his grip. Damn it, this was going to be harder than I thought. Again, I tried to wriggle out of his grip but failed. "Can't we talk about this later?" I tried to negotiate. Adonis looked at me like I was crazy. "I want to know now, who was it that had your heart before me?" I didn't want to answer that. The scary look in Adonis's eyes told me that Hunter would be in deep trouble if he ever found out. Even though Hunter was the one who had broken my heart, it's not like I wanted something bad to happen to him. "Who was it?" Adonis growled. Suddenly, the door opened and my mom poked her head through the door. "There you are. Everyone's been looking for you too. It's time for the royal dance." I let out a sigh of relief. There was no way I could keep secrets from a man like that for long. Adonis's eyes softened, and he loosened the grip he had on me. I breathed a sigh of relief that I had managed to get out of this situation. Adonis looked at me with his eyebrows raised. "Don't think I will forget about this. Once I sort this issue out, I will find out who broke your heart." The sincerity in his voice caused sparks to shoot down my spine and made me shiver. Adonis took my hand, and we made our way back downstairs where everyone was waiting for us. Damn, it felt weird to be stared at. I flushed, uncomfortable with all the attention. I had to get used to this queen thing. Then suddenly, I was pulled back into Adonis's body. We stood in the center of the room, and he gently grabbed my hand and held it out to the side. His other hand rested on my hip, which caused sparks to shoot down my body. I felt myself lean toward his touch. What was happening to me? Why were his touches so addictive? I found myself wanting to be touched by him. I didn't want this moment to end. Then suddenly, we began to dance. I'm not exactly the best dancer, but he took the lead perfectly, and all I had to do was follow his steps. It was like we were gliding. He smiled, his piercing eyes giving me a look of powerful affection. I could stare into those eyes for an eternity, but then suddenly, I noticed he wasn't the only one giving me a stare like that. Oh, goddess. Hunter was glaring at me again, his eyes following my every move. I feel myself getting uneasy, and my feet got out of step with Adonis's. He instantly noticed and a worried expression fell across his face. "What is it?" he whispered. I shook my head, trying to act like nothing was wrong, but Adonis quickly followed my gaze. His eyes landed on Hunter, whose face said everything. I didn't even have a chance move before Adonis turned and pounced on Hunter in a flash. And at that moment, the lover of my past and the lover of my present went crashing down to the floor and all hell broke loose. Adonis was holding Hunter by the collar, causing him to nearly suffocate with the tightness of his grip. His other hand was placed over his chest, like he might rip out Hunter's heart with his bare hands without a second thought. Just a few moments before, I was dancing with Adonis, holding him close, surprised at my own attraction to him. But now, I saw him for what he really was, a monster. I couldn't believe that someone like this was really my mate, and I wasn't going to let him do anything to Hunter. "Adonis," I called out. I ran over and tried to pull him off of Hunter, but he was sturdy as a boulder. I couldn't make him budge. "Adonis, please don't hurt him. He didn't do anything." "I am the king," Adonis said through gritted teeth. "I do what I want." His eyes were still glowing with rage. I was certain that he would shift any second now and then Hunter would really be done for. I kept expecting Hunter to say something, but he was silent. He knew better than to talk back to the king, but apparently I didn't. "Let go of him," I said sternly. "Now." Adonis's eyes turned to find mine. For an instant, I thought he might attack me, but to my surprise, I saw his grip loosen on Hunter's collar. "Get your mate and get the hell out of here," Adonis snarled to Hunter. Then he let go of the poor man, grabbed my hand, and led us away without glancing back. I followed him, grateful to have avoided a real disaster. We walked outside onto the patio, and before we even had a moment alone, Gabe, Evan, and Lexi appeared at our side. "I told everyone else to go home too," Gabe said. "It seemed like the night was over anyway." Adonis nodded and then said, "I have to go and check on something. Stay here." That last sentence was directed at me. I watched as Adonis left. Sophia and Luke entered and looked worried. Gabe whispered something to the two of them, and they both looked at me, eyes wide, with shock. Instinctively, I looked down at my dress to see if there was a stain or something on it, but there wasn't. "I'm sorry you had to witness that," Gabe said, "but it's programmed in the lichen DNA to protect his mate at any cost." "Arya, that was amazing," Sophia trailed off. "What about that was amazing?" I asked. Adonis didn't fully lose control. Normally he needs to be physically restrained once his lichen takes over. "It hasn't even been a full day since he found you, yet your presence is helping him stay in control." Sophia smiled. Could my presence really be the reason that Adonis is managing to stay in control? It seemed unlikely, but the faces of the lichens made me think otherwise. Was a lichen's mate that important that they could help their mates stay in control? I didn't have much time to think about it because Adonis walked in. He had changed, and I couldn't help but admit how hot he looked. My mom came up to me and gave me a big hug. "It's time we got going now." My heart sank. There was no way I wasn't going back home with them. Not possible. "I am coming back with you," I stated, and Adonis's head whipped around. "No, baby. You need to stay here. I'll pack your things and send them here for you." My mom stroked my cheek. I scoffed and replied, "No way. I am coming back." "No offense, Mom, but my whole life is back home, and I should be the one to pack everything up." Adonis growled, clearly not happy with what I said, but I just rolled my eyes. "He can't control me." My mom looked between us both, worried. She never liked conflict anyway. Carter walked over and winked at me. Smiley, "I know you're going to miss my gorgeous body, but don't worry, I'll send you pics." I laughed and shoved Carter away. "Please, I don't wanna see pictures of your beer belly." Carter gasped, but I didn't let him say anything. "I am coming back home because only I have the right to pack away everything that belongs to me." No one said anything else to me. They were all waiting to see what Adonis would say. Not that it mattered to me. I was going home no matter what. Finally Adonis sighed. "Fine, you can go back home, but you only have 2 days. In 2 days' time, I will be there to pick you up." His tone left no room for argument. Damn, 2 days isn't a lot of time, but I could still escape. There was no way I was coming back here. I didn't want to mate, and I didn't want to be queen, especially after what I had just witnessed. I had to escape before it was too late. My thoughts were interrupted by Adonis's harsh tone. "I'll be sending 2 people. I trust to guard you. Don't think you can try and escape me." His gaze pierced my own, and I froze. How could he have known what I was thinking? Hope disintegrated as I realized I wouldn't be able to escape. Adonis looked at everyone and nodded before motioning to the other lichens to follow him. When they left, my mom looked at me and sighed. "Arya, what is wrong with you?" I shrugged, not wanting to answer, but that wasn't good enough for my mom. "You are the mate of a lichen. Forget about the fact he is king, but you know how important a mate is to a lichen, and you're still acting like this. Why?" What if he doesn't let me become a pack doctor because I have to be queen? I don't want to be tied down and not be able to pursue my dreams. Sighing, I turned away from my mom. She turned me back around and said, I have raised a strong woman, not a coward. We are all aware that if you want something, you will fight for it. So, don't give me that crap. I know it's hard to grow up and leave your family, but you are needed here. Think of your mate. There was nothing I could say to that. Obviously my mom was right. She always was. What she didn't know is my reluctance to have a mate was because of my broken heart. Carter caught my gaze and gave me a sympathetic smile. He knew the reason. Luke and Sophia walked in and smiled. We will be your guards. That way I can spend more time with my family. Sophia smiled. Hope reignited in me. Maybe it was possible for me to escape. Luke looked at me with a serious expression on his face. Don't try anything, Arya. I won't let you escape. You'll kill my king in the process. Just as quickly as hope came, it vanished. Not trusting my voice, I just nodded. There was no way I could try anything with Luke around, and I had no doubt that Sophia wouldn't let me escape either. Wow, I can't believe my Smiley is going to be queen. Don't forget about us commoners. When you're sitting on that massive throne of yours, Carter said, putting his arms around my shoulders. Rolling my eyes, I elbowed him, and Carter just laughed before grabbing Dia's hand and walking out. Right. It is time to get back to the hotel. We have to leave early. Just as I was turning to leave, I felt a hand on my arm. I turned around and Adonis was standing there. He leaned in close, his lips hovering just inches above mine. As much as I tried to resist it, a wave of attraction flooded my body. 2 days, Arya, he whispered, and then you're all mine. The next morning was complete chaos. Everyone woke up late and of course that angered my dad considerably. However, we still managed to hit the road at 10 a.m., which I think was an achievement considering the night we had last night. Dia decided to come back with us. It wasn't a big deal for her because she still had family in her mate's pack. Nia was heading back home with her parents. She seemed better this morning, but I knew she had a long way till she was back to her normal bubbly self. Carter was driving, and he had Dia, Hunter, and Lana with him. I was still with my parents, which was fine by me. Luke and Sophia were in their own car behind us. Mom was chatting to Dad while I had my headphones plugged in and was blasting my music and reading. Last night was the worst night's sleep I have ever gotten. My wolf was restless all night and still is. It made me a very moody person, but I tried to hide it because I knew what my mom would say. She'd tell me that it's because I wasn't with my mates, and I hated to admit she was probably right. My phone pinged, bringing me out of my thoughts. I glanced down to see a text saying 2 days, and then I'm coming to take what is mine. How did he get my number? And who does he think he is referring to me like I am just his property? My anger got the better of me as I replied, 1. How did you get my number? And 2. Don't refer to me as your property. I am my own person. The nerve of him. I couldn't believe that he would say something like that to me. It didn't take long for a reply to come through. Sophia gave me your number, and I am not referring to you as my property, but as my mate. I scoffed and typed my response. That is not how it sounded. Now I am going to sleep. Bye. Arya, it is taking every ounce of my self-control not to drive down there right now and take you back. You're making it harder with your sass. Adonis's response made me shiver. I could imagine his dangerous tone. Why did that kind of excite me? Stupid, traitorous body making me feel things I shouldn't be feeling. Okay, sorry, but I really am tired, I responded, careful not to piss him off more. Sweet dreams, Arya. Thank you for coming into my life, and please message me when you safely reach your house. Adonis's response wasn't meant to get my body all worked up, but it did. My wolf was going crazy and was angry that I left Adonis. I felt like my own body was against me, although the warm feeling that flooded my body after I read Adonis's message was the best feeling ever. My eyes closed as I let sleep take over me. Arya, wake up, we're home. My mom gently shook me awake. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and looked at my mom. Home. Already. I slept the whole way. My dad chuckled. You were knocked out, didn't even wake up when we reached the service station. Your mate rang too. But you were still sleeping, so Mom told him you were knocked out. Oh, and Carter may or may not have taken a few pictures of you. Whoa, I can't believe I was that tired that I was completely dead to the world. Hang on a second, did Dad say Carter took pictures of me? That bastard. He'd use them to blackmail me. Groaning, I got out of the car and went to find Carter. He was talking to Luke and Sophia, but stopped when he saw me coming over. He had a massive smile on his face, which meant the pictures he took of me must have been awful. Carter, delete those damn pictures now. I glared at him. Nope, they're such good blackmail material. Smiley, they could come in use. Carter ruffled my hair. Scowling, I turned to Dia and whispered, you're on my side, please delete those damn pictures. Dia smiled at me and whispered back, don't you worry, I've got your back. Smiling triumphantly, I walked back to my car to help bring everything in. Luke was trailing behind me, and I sighed. You know you don't have to follow me everywhere, right? Don't have to, but I will, Luke replied. Great, my last 2 days at home I'll have no privacy. After bringing everything inside, I collapsed on my bed and pulled out my phone. I don't know why, but I called Adonis and put the phone to my ear. He answered on the first ring. You're home. His deep voice sent shivers down my spine. Yes, just got home, Dad told me. You rang. Sorry, I was asleep, I replied, trying hard to not stutter. Yes. They said you must have been really tired. Why is that? Did you not sleep well last night? Adonis asked. Of course I slept well, I retorted. Really? Adonis's tone made me think he didn't believe me. Yes. Why are you asking me? I said. Because, my little mate, I know you didn't sleep well last night. I know you are lying to me, Adonis said. I could sense the smirk on the other end. How did you know? I sighed. I also had the worst night's sleep last night. I only got a good hour in after messaging you, Adonis replied. But why? I don't understand. I was at a loss for words. How can we both be having a bad night's sleep? We haven't even known we were mates for an entire day yet. You really don't know. The reason I was hesitant to send you home was because my lichen and your wolf crave each other, and separating them only brings the two of us pain, not to mention that you would have already started transitioning into a lichen, Adonis explained. Shit, now I felt like an idiot. I immediately jumped to conclusions, thinking Adonis was some territorial mate and didn't want me out of his sight. Well done, Arya, always jumping to conclusions. I had no idea. Why so soon? Don't werewolves shift after the mating process? I asked. Normal werewolves mated to normal lichens. Yes, you are not a normal werewolf. And you most certainly aren't mated to a normal lichen. Adonis chuckled. That chuckle sent sparks all over my body. I had never heard such a beautiful sound. Oh, right, I lamely replied. I had given up on all hope of ever finding you. I had accepted my fate to be mated to another lichen to please the council. Seeing you that day reignited my sleeping heart, Adonis softly said. I gasped and replied, Adonis, no, don't say anything. I just want to fall asleep to your breathing. It makes me feel like you're right next to me. Adonis slowly drifted off to sleep. I waited for some time before gently saying, good night, Adonis, and then I hung up. My phone fell out of my hands, and I sighed. Adonis was doing crazy things to me, making me feel things I had never felt before, and I wasn't sure what to do. Instead of wanting to escape Adonis, I found myself wanting to stay, and that thought terrified me. The next 2 days came around much quicker than expected. I found myself neck deep in all the packing I had to do. Without fail, Adonis rang me every day, and I actually looked forward to my calls. He asked me how packing went, and I replied with boring, to which he said that I should have just stayed home with him, but I told him the same thing, that I wanted to say a proper goodbye to the place I grew up in, and he understood. Carter stepped right into his role of being alpha, and Dia was right by his side. Seeing them both together either made me feel sick or made me feel happy. I think Carter purposely tries to make me feel sick by making out with my cousin in front of me. True to his word, Luke followed me around everywhere. I could tell he was super cautious. For me, I had come to terms with the fact I couldn't escape this time, but I hadn't given up. Sophia was around a lot too. She helped me pack and talked to me about the changes I would be facing. Sounded pretty daunting, to be honest, but I just nodded and smiled. There was one person who began to give me the creeps. Hunter. For some reason, every time I glanced at him, he was already looking back at me. I no longer felt the pain that I used to feel, but instead felt very uncomfortable. It felt like he was staking a claim on me, and that wouldn't end well for him. I can't imagine Adonis willingly giving me over to Hunter ever. Adonis rang me at 9 a.m. this morning to tell me he was on his way to my pack. Those words made me jump out of bed and quickly get ready. Knowing that this would be my last time in my room made me sad. After all, my room had been my sanctuary forever, and I didn't want to leave it behind. Mom popped her head through the door and said, "All packed." I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded, and Mom sighed. "Baby, I know you're finding this difficult, but this is a brand new chapter for you. You should be excited. This will always be your home no matter what, you know that." "Oh, Mom, how can I leave everything behind? This is all I have ever known." I collapsed into my mom's warm embrace. She ran her hands through my hair before replying, "Arya, I raised a strong girl. Change is always hard, but I know that you will get through it." I sighed before nodding. "I'll try. That's my girl." Mom smiled at me. I spent the next 2 hours packing and bringing everything downstairs. Carter and Dia came to help, although Carter just spent most of the time annoying me. "Smiley, don't leave." Carter gave me a sad smile. "Don't you start, because I think I might cry." I shook my head. I've been putting this to the back of my head, thinking I have plenty of time left with you. God, I'll miss you, Smiley. Carter pulled me in for a big hug. I let myself sink into his embrace, and then responded, "How am I going to survive without your constant teasing? You're too high and mighty for that now." Carter teased me. Saying goodbye to my pack proved to be too much for me, as a few tears escaped. I was wiping some away before a car pulled up. Adonis stepped out, and immediately people bowed to him. His gaze found mine, and I was entranced as he walked toward me. "Little mate, I have missed you," Adonis whispered, sending shivers down my spine. I gave him a small smile and watched as his gaze hardened on the tears that had fallen. "Tears? Who made my queen cry?" Adonis growled. People looked down at the floor in worry, and I looked at my mate's face. He was looking at everyone, trying to figure out why I was crying. "No one made me cry. I am just upset that I am leaving," I softly said. Adonis looked at me and sighed. "I should have known. Sorry, everyone. I overreacted." "No, you were just concerned for your mate," Carter replied. Adonis nodded and looked at me. "Are you all set to go?" I nodded, and Adonis motioned for the guards standing behind him to take my stuff away. Tears threatened to fall again when I saw all my belongings being packed away, and my family standing there with sad smiles on their faces. Before we sat in the car, a voice called my name, "Arya." To see Hunter rushing forward with something in his hand, see if I still had the same feelings as I did before, then my heart would be racing so fast. But now I just felt uncomfortable. "Don't go without me giving you your gift. Here." Hunter gave me a necklace. It was a simple necklace, but as I held it in my hand, I couldn't help but think he was staking some sort of claim on me. "Let me." Hunter took the chain out of my hand. "No," Adonis and I both said at the same time. I looked at Adonis, who looked like he was going to tear Hunter apart. "Shit, I hope he hadn't figured out that Hunter was the one that broke my heart. Thanks for the gift, Hunter, but I will put it on later. We need to get going now, I explained. Hunter nodded, but I couldn't help but notice the defeated look on his face. My gaze found Carter, who was currently glaring at Hunter. Daily latest update. That confirmed my suspicions that Hunter was indeed acting weirdly. There was no sign of Lana anywhere, which was odd. Adonis was still glaring at Hunter, but I decided to take charge. Come on, Adonis, we need to get going, I said, pulling Adonis out of his anger-fueled trance against Hunter. He nodded at me, and I turned to my family and smiled sadly. I love you all, and I will miss you so much, I said. We love you too, Arya, my dad replied. Once Adonis and I were both in the car, I waved sadly as we left my pack house, the only place I knew as home for all these years. The first hour of the journey was silent. I listened to music while Adonis drove. We stopped at services in the second hour for a toilet break, and I met Sophia while getting some food. When we hit the road again, I noticed that Adonis hadn't gotten any food while I picked up a sandwich. Then entailed the inner debate of whether or not I should offer him my sandwich. My wolf, of course, was saying offer him all my food, which was pushing it just a little. After all, a girl still needed to eat. In the end, I decided to share my sandwich, but when I offered it to Adonis, he told me he couldn't eat and drive. What rubbish, I always ate and drive. Nevertheless, I felt some sort of need to want Adonis to eat. Therefore, I did the only logical thing possible. I fed him. I think he was shocked when my hand suddenly went in front of his face, holding a sandwich. He looked at me in confusion, and I glanced back at the sandwich and said, "Eat." He nodded slowly, and while focusing on the road, took a bite out of the sandwich. That action made me shiver. Honestly, was my body going to react like this every time Adonis did something? I wasn't sure I could handle it. Adonis continued to eat the sandwich I fed him, and once he finished, I knew he was satisfied. Then I ate the other half. It was only silent for a while before I broke it to say, "I don't know if you know that I was training to be a pack doctor." Adonis looked at me and then back at the road. Yes, I knew that. Of course he did. Why wasn't I shocked? Obviously he did some sort of background check on me. Background check on me. Well, I'd like to continue my training and work as a professional. I glanced to see his reaction. Of course, there isn't a problem with that. Adonis's response shocked me. You're okay with it? I asked. Yes, why wouldn't I be? Adonis looked at me. I thought I was going to be engaged in queen duties all day. Or I wasn't allowed because I was going to be a queen, I admitted. There is no reason why you cannot be a doctor and a queen. You obviously have a talent and are passionate about being a pack doctor. Those two things are precious, and I would never take them away from you. Adonis smirked when he saw my reaction. Have some faith in me, little one. I am not as bad as you think, Adonis teased. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded instead. Who knew Adonis would agree so easily? I planned out in my head the other steps I would take because I was sure he'd disagree, but he had proved me wrong. It was at that moment that I yawned, and Adonis chuckled. That sent sparks down my spine. His laugh made me feel all fuzzy inside. I guess you're not an early riser. Adonis smiled. I shook my head and Adonis said, "Sleep, little one." I didn't need telling twice. My eyes began to close once I relaxed, and the last words I heard before falling into a deep slumber were, "Soon we will be home." When I woke up, I realized I wasn't in the car anymore. I rubbed my eyes and glanced around the unfamiliar surroundings. It was clear I was in a room, most probably Adonis's, by his strong scent being everywhere. I sat up and looked around, but he wasn't here. My belongings were though. They were scattered all over the room. I took the time to admire his room. The bed was massive, probably a super king. He had a massive TV on the wall and two sofas near the massive windows. He also had a balcony. The color scheme was all gray and black, As much as I loved the room, I felt like it told me how busy Adonis was. The TV remotes all had dust on them, like he hadn't picked them up in ages. Adonis must have worked really hard if he was hardly in his room, and that made me admire him a lot more. For some reason I felt like it was my duty to make sure Adonis got his rest, because he clearly needed it. Sophia's words came back to me. Adonis had been dealing with a lot because he hadn't found his mate. Now that I was here, would it make his life easier? I hoped so. I got out of the comfy bed and opened the bedroom door. There was no one on this floor, or no one that I could see. Maybe I should find Adonis. My wolf certainly agreed. No, I think that would be a bad idea. I should just stay in the room and unpack. There isn't a reason for me to find him. Once I closed the door, I looked at all my stuff and then around the room. There was plenty of space here, but the issue I had was where do I put it? Going through his things to make space for mine felt wrong. Damn it, maybe I did need to find him. Sighing, I walked toward the door yet again when a knock sounded. I knew it wasn't Adonis because my wolf would be going crazy. It must be some guard who Adonis sent. I opened the door and there stood Savannah. Great, just great. She was the last person I wanted to see, and it was clear from her facial expression that I was the last person she wanted to see too. Can I help you? I asked. Where is Dimitri? She replied. Why? I questioned, not liking the fact she wanted to see Adonis. Look, you need to learn to mind your own business. First you embarrass me in front of all those people, and now you're sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Savannah spat. Oh, I am so sorry. Like I meant to find my mate who just happened to be your date. Get over yourself. And if you want to speak to Adonis, then find him yourself. Clearly whatever you want to talk to him about isn't any of my business anyway. I shrugged my shoulders. Wow, you're so pathetic and childish. Savannah sighed. Fuck off. I don't want to see you here. I glared at her and was about to shut the door when the atmosphere suddenly changed. It became more electric, and there was only one person who could do that. Adonis. My gaze found his as he walked up the stairs toward me. I swallowed a lump in my throat. Adonis was really hot. Damn it. No, Arya, you shouldn't be having these dangerous thoughts. What is going on here? Adonis asked. I watched as Savannah fixed her hair and adjusted her boobs. This girl had no fucking shame. I glared at Adonis. You and your girlfriend sort out your shit. I don't have time for this. Without waiting for a response, I slammed the door shut and leaned against it. I hadn't even been here a full day, and already I found some drama. What I should have done was go sit on the bed and wait for Adonis to come in. But instead I found myself listening. Adonis let out a large sigh, and I heard Savannah try and talk, but Adonis shut her down. This floor is meant for me and my mate only. You know you shouldn't be here at all. All you've done is cause me more problems. Guilt began to eat away at my heart. Was I too harsh on him? Clearly, he wasn't impressed with Savannah and wanted to get out of this situation. Now, if I was in my right senses, I would have left them two to deal with whatever it was. However, I wasn't in my right senses at all because I didn't do that at all. Instead, I opened the door, catching them both by surprise. While Adonis looked relieved to see me, Savannah looked livid. This bitch needed to learn her place. As a matter of fact, I take back what I said. I need Adonis, and since he is my mate, I get top priority. You should make an appointment, although I can't guarantee that he will see you. He is a very busy man. By now, I am sure you remember the way down. I smiled sweetly at Savannah before grabbing Adonis's hand and bringing him back inside the room. I heard her mutter bitch before leaving. Maybe now she got the hint. Adonis had a massive grin on his face as he looked at me. Don't flatter yourself. She was pissing me off, and I really did need you for something, I told him. His stupid grin didn't go away. It became bigger. It made his whole face light up, and his eyes sparkle with joy. Wow, he looked so hot like that. No, I shook my head to clear those thoughts. Damn Adonis and his sexy grin, what the hell was he doing to me? My wolf was going crazy seeing Adonis smile like that. He looked at me and said, "You just claimed me as yours, little one. Me and my lichen are very happy." His words caused me to gasp. Did I really? Holy shit, I did. I claimed Adonis as my mate. I didn't even realize I accepted him. I turned to Adonis and asked, "What about you?" He smirked at me and grabbed my hand to pull me closer to him. That action caused sparks to shoot down my spine, which I couldn't help but love. "I already claimed you the first time I met you. Remember?" He whispered in my ear. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. Adonis lifted my chin up so I was staring into his eyes. "If you want me to, little one, I would claim you in front of the entire world. Then everyone would know you are mine," Adonis said. I gasped at the lust and sincerity present in his eyes. I knew he was telling the truth. It wasn't hard to tell. My walls I had built up were crumbling slowly, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Adonis had me in a trance that I never wanted to get out of. "Well, you called me here for a reason, so let me help you unpack," Adonis said, smirking at me. What? My mind was all over the place. Unpack? Unless you've decided that you didn't need my help after all, then I'll just go. Adonis shrugged his shoulders. Wait, I do need your help to put the heavy stuff away, I rambled. Since when do I ramble? Oh right, since I found out Adonis was my mate. Adonis just stood there and smirked. First you claim me as your mate, and now you call me strong. Best day ever. I didn't call you strong. My cheeks felt warm. Maybe not directly, but you implied it. He smiled. I rolled my eyes and pointed toward the boxes. Right, let's unpack then, Adonis said. It took us about half an hour to unpack all my things. Obviously Adonis wasn't allowed to unpack my clothes or undergarments. Men, they have a one-track mind. Once we unpacked, Adonis took me downstairs where Gabe and Lexi were. Wow, I didn't think we'd see the two of you today. Gabe winked. As if you and Lexi weren't bad when you first met. In fact, if I recall correctly, then you two didn't come out of your room for 3 days, Adonis replied. Lexi blushed and Gabe pushed Adonis. Okay, enough. What should we do now? Lexi asked. How about a tour? I don't really know where anything is in this massive place, I suggested. Lexi's eyes lit up. That's such a good idea. Of course you wouldn't know where everything is. Let's go, guys. Okay, Arya, this is the time you can look for potential exit points. Take notes, this information is useful. I didn't really pay much attention to Lexi's explanation as she took me on the tour. The men were trailing behind. What I noticed on this tour was that every exit was guarded. Adonis was clearly very strict about who enters and who leaves. For some reason the thought of not being able to leave didn't make me sad. The very fact I was thinking about leaving was now causing me sadness. A few hours in Adonis's presence and I was feeling like this. The mate bond was something very powerful indeed. Lexi showed me where the kitchen was, and as we entered, many people left. These people stopped in their steps and bowed to me. What the hell? I didn't want to be bowed to. It made me feel weird. Lexi sensed my discomfort and pulled me ahead of the boys to whisper, I know you're not used to people bowing to you, but it's their way of showing their respect to you. Arya, these people have prayed for you to arrive and help their king. Her words stuck with me. Adonis was alone for so long, his people must have given up hope as well, I guess. Adonis finding me was the best thing for him and his people. Wow, I was turning into a softie, but I wasn't mad about that. Once the tour was done, Adonis and I said our goodbyes. Adonis told me he'd meet me upstairs after he'd ordered food for us. I hugged Lexi before heading back to the room. Adonis's heavenly scent lingered in the air, and I breathed it all in. His scent warmed me. It was an amazing feeling. Hunter's necklace caught my eye, and I walked over to it. If only he had given it to me sooner, I thought as I ran my hands over it. If he had returned my feelings sooner, then I wouldn't be in this mess. However, something deep inside me told me that Hunter was never the one for me, that he was never going to keep me eternally happy. Sighing, I picked up the necklace to chuck in the bin. As much as I didn't want to, it was for the best. I didn't need any reminders of my past lying around here. Before I could chuck it in the bin, Adonis walked in and his gaze immediately narrowed on the necklace. "Why are you holding that thing?" he asked, closing the door. Well, I didn't get a chance to reply as Adonis stepped even closer to me, his chest rising up and down. "Why are you sad over this necklace?" His deep voice caused sparks to shoot down my spine. "I am not sad over this necklace. In fact, I was going to again." My sentence remained unfinished, this time because I looked into Adonis's eyes. His stunning hazel eyes were switching to black. I knew what that meant. His lichen was in control. My heart was racing faster and faster, but not from nerves, from excitement. I blame my wolf for that. "Tell me the truth. I saw the way that boy looked at you," Adonis spat. "Oh shit, don't tell me he figured out that Hunter is the one who broke my heart." My mouth opened, ready to tell a lie, but one look into Adonis's eyes shut it real quick. I felt compelled to tell him the truth. Yes, Hunter is the one who broke my heart, but now all he does is make me feel uncomfortable. I hate being in the same room with him anymore. This necklace was only in my hands because I was going to chuck it in the bin, I explained. The necklace fell from my hand and dropped into the bin. Without wasting a second, Adonis picked me up and placed me on top of the dresser. He buried his face in my neck, causing me to gasp. That small action of his made the desire for me to run my hands through his hair grow. My hands found Adonis's soft hair on their own accord. Adonis let out a groan. Gosh, why was that so X? That sound caused my core to tighten, and I clenched my thighs. Adonis would not smell my desire, although he was making it hard to disguise it. Lips trailed from my jaw to my neck, and I closed my eyes, relishing in the contact. I gasped as I felt him nip at my neck. "If you think about running away, I will find you, and when I do, I'll show you why people have nightmares about me," Adonis whispered in my ear. He walked out of the room, leaving me flustered and incredibly turned on.